Okay, so the title here is Suits Gameplay Definition and the Game Status of Chess, a reflection on the Hickson-Ridge debate. Introduction. Practical problem. Bernard Suits offered an influential definition of gameplay for thinking more clearly about statements like life is a game we are playing in a seminar paper from 1967, but Michael Hickson in 2022 has come to the conclusion that an activity like playing chess cannot be understood as game playing according to this definition. In Hickson's view, this means that chess is not a game, although others might question Suits' definition. So there is a problem there. Proposed solution. Michael Ridge recently in 2024 argues that there is a flaw in Hickson's argument, meaning that chess is still a game according to Suits' definition, although he questions the soundness of the definition because he feels it does not take the social aspects of gameplay sufficiently into consideration. In other words, there is still a problem. And so my suggestion to this debate is I believe that Suits, in my understanding, I believe that Suits' definition of gameplay can be identified as sound. I think it can be identified as sound, given that two things. One, we are interested in distinguishing between playing games and working, frivolous and serious activities, or recreational and professional activities, because that is what motivated Suits in coming up with this definition of gameplay. And but two, we have to be using a game theoretical definition of what a game is. In other words, we have to distinguish between gameplay and game, which has consequences for the discussion about whether both for the implication of the practical problem of whether practical problem and solution in terms of whether chess is a game and whether Bernard's definition of gameplay is a good definition. The purpose of the presentation is to motivate, present and defend this suggestion in the context of the Hickson-Ridge debate. So let's start with Suits' definition of gameplay. To play a game is to attempt to achieve a specific state of affairs using only means permitted by rules, where the rules prohibit use of more efficient in favor of less efficient means, and where the rules are accepted just because they make possible such activity. This is the definition Suits presents in his 1978 book, The Grasshopper, from the third edition, 2014. The definition, the basis of the definition was published already in 1967, but in this special concept, pre-illusory goal, constitutive rules, and illusory activities were added later. Now, in order to understand what Suits means, I think he uses the game of golf as an example. I think that's a very useful explanation. So to play a game like golf is to attempt to achieve a specific state of affairs, meaning to drop the ball into a hole in the ground. And this it defines as a pre-illusory goal, meaning that it's something that a goal that is defined before we start talking about whether it is a game or not. It is a goal that is established before we define it as a game. And what makes it into a game is the next thing, namely the rules, the constitutive rules. So we have to achieve this specific state of affairs using only means permitted by rules, where the rules prohibit use of more or less efficient in favor of less efficient means, constitutive rules. So in case of golf, rather than just taking the ball, walking across the lawn and dumping it into the hole, we have to use the club and to hit it into the hole with as few hits as possible, and so on. Thirdly, and where the rules are accepted just because they make possible such activity. This is illusory activity, and that is also very important for suits, namely that it is we are doing something because it is a game it is play. It is supposed to be fun, relaxing, enjoyable, making possible to make perhaps competitive. It is we are and we follow the rules. If we do not follow the rules, if we cheat, then we're not playing the game. So we accept the rules and follow the rules. So in a way, a game, the process, the pre-illusory goal, we have to follow. It's important to follow the rules of the game in order to achieve the goal. If you don't follow the rules, then it's not a game, as Suits is. Okay, so what's the problem here? The problem is when we start looking at something like chess, and this is something that Suits also discusses in chapter 4 of the Grasshopper. Does chess have a pre-illusory goal? Hickson was not particularly impressed by the goal, the way Suits define the goal, but he comes up with what seems to be a good description of what a goal is in chess. Is to establish checkmate, to checkmate the opponent. And by checkmate we mean an arrangement of chess pieces on a chessboard such that one king, according to the rules of chess, is attacked by at least one opposing piece, and the player whose king is thus under attack has no legal move. This is illustrated on the right side here, where we see the white is being checkmated by black. The black tower is put in a position where it threatens the white king, and the white king can move either left or right, but in both cases it will be attacked, it will be obliterated by the tower, so it's checkmate. However, according to Hickson's analysis, no matter how we try to look at it, the goal depends on the rule that define the game, so the goal cannot be pre-illusory, as also stated in the definition of checkmate, and also the definitions used by Suits. It's obvious that the end goal depends on the rules. Well, it's but as I said, the Suits has already addressed this in chapter 4 of the Grasshopper book, and suggested a way out of it, and that is the idea of talking about the prescriptive game rules, explaining how we are supposed to move the pieces when we play the game, and the institution of the game, just by observing how they can be moved without not necessarily playing. And here he uses cases like he talks about players like the trifler and people who are not engaged in playing in the game, but are just moving the pieces across the board. So Suits, point 1 here, Suits means that we can illustrate checkmate outside a game of chess by using what he calls the institution of chess. Hickson, however, objects to this, as he refers to as an illustration of checkmate, needs to abide by the rules. Or what he says, that illusory checkmate is not allowed. And what he means by that, if you look at the example on the right side, that looks like a checkmate. A white is being checkmated by the white king, at the bottom by the black queen. So the king can either move to one step to the right, but will then be obliterated by the queen, or it can take the queen, but will then be obliterated by the bishop. So this looks like a good example, superficially it looks like a good example of a checkmate. However, it is not a illusory checkmate, Hickson argues, it's illusory. It is a checkmate that is not compatible with real gameplay. If you look more closely at the pieces, we see that the bishop could not have, according to the official rules of chess, it seems impossible. How could the bishop be placed in that position with the peasant bricks behind it? There is no way that could happen. So it appears that black must have violated the rules, and thus this is not a viable example of a real example of a checkmate, meaning that the illusory checkmate is not acceptable, and which means that the only checkmates we could use for explaining are the illusory checkmates. In other words, the checkmates that are consistent with having followed the rules from the beginning of the game, but then the checkmate is no longer pre-illusory, it is illusory. So that is how he argues that chess does not fit with the definition, with Sue's definition of gameplay, and it is thus not a game. Point 3. Ridge, however, he believes that Hickson is too strict and believes that both illusory and illusory illustrations of checkmate should be sufficient for explaining the goal of a game. So he means that, in his opinion, or in the way how he interprets suits, he believes that Hickson is too strict. But this is and both Hickson and Ridge are make elaborate arguments. So this is a debate. Personally, I feel more sympathetic with Ridge, but I would perhaps have argued in a slightly different way. Try to avoid this institution idea, and I think it could perhaps be avoided if by simply asking the question: can we define the goal of chess without having decided on the rules? This is what Suits try to do by introducing this concept of the institution of chess. But I think we can make an even better argument by, as I say, before engaging in gameplay, open up for the possibility of either following the official rules or some kind of house rules. So if we are at this very stage, we are not specific about rules. We say that, on the contrary, we say there are different kinds of rules, and I will not explain the rules right now. Now I will just explain what is meant by checkmate as goal. So point 2, let the goal of checkmate be as defined before, in order to immobilize and attack the king according to the rules, but emphasizing the rules have not been decided upon yet. So after having explained that, and so everybody understand what a checkmate is, without necessarily understanding the rules, then we can decide on whether to follow the official rules or some kind of house rules and start the game. So what this means on the example on the right side, then it's not obvious whether this configuration is taken from illusory or illusory checkmate. It all depends on which set of rules we choose to follow. Of course, if you're looking at the official rules of chess, then there is something wrong here, and black has probably cheated. But if we have decided on some kind of house rules that would allow this this configuration, then it's just an illustration of, it could function as an illustration of checkmate, and then we explain the rules afterwards. So in this sense, I would argue that the chess people are. Chess is a game in according to as implicitly defined through the gameplay definition of Bernard Suits, or is it? Because if you look as in the bold fonts below, if people are forced into playing chess, will it still be a game? Because this is the third the goal. You have to have prelusory goal. You have to have the constituent rules, and then it was the illusory attitude, and that means it should be a play which is different from work and different from something we're being pressed into doing. So in that case, I think it would not fit with the final part of his definition. So despite meeting the first requirement in Suits' definition, not all types of chess, I believe, would fit with the final. This is also something Suits discusses in his book, whether professional game players are playing chess or not. But in this particular example, I'm trying to be even more forceful, saying that if we are forcing people into playing chess against their will, they're moving the pieces according to the same rules, and the goal is the same, but the attitude it will be played with a different attitude. So now I'm trying deliberately to force to break with this final this ludic attitude. And in that case, I think it's pretty obvious that chess is not a game, but I think this motivates looking at, but that's because we look at define game as implicitly from Suits' definition. Because if what I'm trying to do here, putting Suits' definition of what I would call frivolous gameplay into a wider context, differentiating between frivolous gameplay and serious gameplay. From Suits' perspective, he's talking about his assumption, his starting point in the 1967 paper is that that playing a game is different from working. So when you look at this Venn diagram of the three circles here, game, play, and work, he would say that the intersection between work and game and work and play are empty. But for a moment, let's assume that they are not empty. That it's possible to that they're also possible to play games at work, like political games, psychological games, economic games, things. just like like it's done in game theory, where game theory, which is also where Suits takes his motivation from at the first sentence of his 1967 paper. Although he says it in the 2014 version of the book that it's not speaking specifically about game theory. He says that it may still be relevant or interesting, or he hopes that people are interested in game theory may find this his definition and his discussion interesting, which I think we should do. So the point when we look at game theory, then we have this intersection serious gameplay into work, where we use games, the prisoner's dilemma, chicken, chess, different kinds of games for describing game-like situations in the real world, which are not normally thought of as games, but they have a game-like structure in the sense that there are games in this context simply the strategic interaction between decision makers. On the other hand, between game and play, we have the frivolous gameplay, which is what how the grasshopper plays games. But we also have this play outside of the nothing to do with games, which is playing theater, playing musical instruments, playing unstructured play of different kinds, and they have the overlap between play and work, which I describe as having fun at work, or just doing joking and having fun at work. And we have also suggest at the intersection of all of them gamification, which is an area where actually the Suits definition has made an impact. For instance, if you look at, for instance, the work of Jane McGonigal and others, that plays an important aspect in how gamification, game design and gamification is approached. But to look more closely at what the game theoretical how the game theoretical game definition fits with Suits' gameplay definition. So, as I said, the 1944 definition, Morgenstern and von Neumann, 1944, define a game as any situation where players, decision makers, make choices that affect each other's outcome, which is a definition made for the purpose of analyzing how to analyze how to win at games, how to win at chess. Because they can make game trees and they can program, they can do all sorts of things. Suits' definition, on the other hand, I refer here to slightly. He defines a game implicitly through his gameplay definition, which he also summarizes nicely in this: playing a game is the voluntary attempt to overcome unnecessary obstacles. So if we look at, like I've done here at the bottom, if we look at the games that can be described through game theoretical definition, which according to Beverstoff's are all games can be described in this manner, which are all recreational. I mean here all recreational games in the frivolous or recreational sense. They can be, or as it explains more in more detail, that there are three types of game theory on this triangle. You have the strategic game at the bottom left of the triangle. You have the more puzzle-like games, the combinatorial games on the top, and on the hand the chance theory of chance games, what you call it, probability theory on the right. And you have games that are like roulette and lotto, and that are strictly taught. They're not the kind of games that Morgenstein and von Neumann are interested in, but they are still compliant with the same theoretical framework, and that also goes for puzzles like chess and Go. Although then you apply what is called combinatorial game theory. But the point here is that you can make games, the type of games that Suits is interested in can be defined through as mathematical ideas and mathematical concepts, but that says nothing about how you play them. So there is something unique about Suits' definition, and that is he defines what it means to play a game. Although, so in the case of, if you return to now the case of chess, and for Suits, of course, it's a recreational playing of chess that is the interesting example, the frivolous gameplay that is detached from work. We are not interested in professional chess championships here, at least at the beginning, because that would be then people may be motivated of sort of outside things outside our work, like the prize or the prestige or things like that, at least. Or we could look at people who are, although some Magnus Carlsen and some of these people may of course enjoy very much what they are doing, but then we move into this Asshopper Grant point at the middle, where it's both work and play. But I think it's also important to stress that there are probably people, like I said, people being forced into playing chess who see now fun and interest in it. So they don't see it as play; they simply see it as work. Like, for instance, if you send children to chess school because you want them to be like you can send children to piano lessons or to something that they do not like at all, or being taught instructed chess at school or something. They just have to do it and do not necessarily like it, but it's they are being taught because somebody thinks that they should learn chess, that is part of something. So we could think, at least we could think of situations where people are forced into playing chess without having any interest. And in that case, it is interesting to if we do not refer to the game theoretical definition of chess or something similar, just make use of the implicit definition of that within Suits' gameplay definition, then his definition will break then it fall to pieces. But if you do it like this, I think there is then it works very nicely. But of course, when Suits was not primarily interested in asking questions like whether chess is a game or not. On the contrary, he took as in his 1967 paper, not this one, not the life as a game paper, but the other one. What is a game? He uses chess as a prime example of what is a game. But the reason he's using it is not because he's particularly interested in chess, at least not. He does not at least express any such indications in that particular paper. But he's interested in questions like: is life a game we are playing? It's a more philosophical question that is also relates to the utopia in the Grasshopper book. because he's interested in this difference between play and work, and how to live a good life. And much of the motivation in the Grasser book comes from Wittgenstein's reflections about language games, the impossibility, what Wittgenstein sees as the impossibility of defining a concept like game, which is perhaps a bit peculiar, as his book was written in 1953 when game theory was already established, but perhaps Wittgenstein was not aware of game theory. But anyways, or perhaps he was thinking about he would perhaps say that game theory is just one kind of exemplifies one kind of game, while he would be interested in not only, yes, he talks about how different conversations create different types of games. And some of the examples we have, it talks about like jokes and puns and word games. That would be illustrate the frivolous game play example of language games. But we also use we have also more serious language games, like when when a philosopher is writing an article for publication in a professional journal. There are certainly there's the prelusory goal of wanting to have it published, and there are the rules of the game, what will get accepted, and the writing style and things like that. And if we do like Bernard Suess, if we move not only writing for the purpose of becoming famous or just publishing another paper, but we are really enjoying the process of writing, then there is then as I indicate at the bottom here, perhaps Bernard Suess was role model for gamifying professional praxis. What I forgot to mention here was that, of course, as I mentioned before, game continues. I continue here to refer to, if in the asked question, is life a game we are playing? It's very easy to say, if you use a life of conflict and cooperation is a game, according to game theory. So it would be a non-controversial statement, say that life is a game we are playing. At least we could say that life of conflict and cooperation is a game. Whether we are playing it means, of course, relates to if you're playing it in the sense that the Suess is arguing, then we are on the left side, then we have to either frivolous game play or the gamification in what I previously called gamification, which is the mixture between frivolous and serious gameplay. So, as I said earlier in the preface to the 2014 book, Bernard Suess says that he's not speaking specifically about game theory, but he would not find it surprising if people interested in game theory would also find his book interesting. And if you look at this 1967 paper here, then it's even more, this type of motivation is even more clearly articulated in this particular sentence: prompted by the current interest of social and behavioral scientists in games, meaning game theory, and the belief that philosophers can say something of interest to scientists, I propose to formulate a definition of game playing, which means, of course, that he is introducing the concept of fun and game and and meaningful life into this more instrumental rationality that we associate with game theory. So in conclusion, I want to say that it is, as I have argued in this presentation, it is meaningless to discuss the game status of chess by using Offsuit's definition of gameplay alone, as we may choose to approach chess either like the grasshopper play or the ant work, regardless of how we define the goals and rules of chess. So, I would say, so from this perspective, I think that both Hickson and Ridge are misguided in believing that they can say anything about the game status of chess simply by looking at this definition. You can say something about playing chess, but not about chess, whether chess is a game or not. But my second point, nevertheless, if we accept the game theoretical definition of chess as a game, which Hickson paradoxically does towards the end of his paper, then the practice of playing chess could function as a metaphor for Suit's idea of utopia as a life of game playing. So, in other words, if we use this Venn diagram I suggested, then I think we have a very interesting, then I think Suit's definition of game playing fits very nicely in and makes a very interesting contribution to the theory and practice of games in general from a very, very broad perspective. Thank you.